My name is Elise Monroe. I'm 30 years old and I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside Savannah, Georgia. It's a warm and calm place with trees that move gently in the wind and neighbors who mostly keep to themselves. I've lived here for the past 7 years, ever since my grandmother passed away and left me her small house. It's not big, but it's mine. Every spring I repaint the kitchen walls, grow herbs on the windowsill, make coffee in the mornings and clean in the evenings. Most days, I work quietly at a small gift shop downtown that sells candles and handmade soaps. My life had always been simple and quiet. Until last year, when everything changed. It started on a Tuesday evening. I was leaving the shop after closing and walking to my car when I saw him. A man was standing outside the bookstore across the street, looking at the display. He had one of those faces that catch your attention even in a crowd. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, and a smile that seemed to hold a secret. He noticed me looking, gave a short wave, and I smiled back. That's how things begin sometimes. Without warning or drama, just a wave across the street. The next evening he was there again. This time he crossed over and asked about the shop. I told him we sold handmade things from local artists. He said his name was Damien, that he had just moved to Savannah from Chicago, and that he worked remotely in marketing for health brands. He spoke clearly, laughed often, and listened in a way that made you feel like your words mattered. I didn't mean to fall into anything. I had been careful all my life. But Damien had a way of making you feel seen. Soon, we were seeing each other often. He'd wait for me outside the shop with coffee, ask about my day, and tell stories about his travels. Before long, our weekends were filled with walks by the river, small restaurant dinners, and late-night conversations about life. He said he wanted peace and honesty, that he was tired of big cities and shallow people. I believed him. He looked me in the eyes when he spoke, and I never once felt he was pretending. He told me I was strong. He told me I made him believe in good people again. And when he finally said I love you, I believed that too. Still, a part of me held back. I'd been alone for a long time. Not out of fear of love, but because I didn't want to be hurt by someone who didn't understand what I had to lose. My grandmother had left me a large part of her savings when she passed. She'd grown up poor and saved carefully all her life. She told me once, "Elise, use this money to build something that gives you peace." I kept it in a special account, untouched even when I needed new tires or when the roof leaked. That money was for something real. Perhaps a wellness shop, a calm space where people could breathe and heal. One evening, Damien and I sat on the back steps watching the sun go down. He asked about my dreams, and I told him about the wellness store idea. He got quiet, then said, "Why don't we make it happen? I know people who invest in health brands. We could build something real together, something that helps others too." I told him I needed time. He said he wasn't rushing me, that he just believed in me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about the shop, the peaceful space, the way he said we. I wanted to believe it was all true. A week later, I told him about the money. Not the full amount, but enough for him to understand what it meant. He didn't react with excitement. He got serious. "You don't have to do anything," he said. "But if you want, I can help you make it grow. I can double it, even triple it in a year. I have connections, Elise. I just need you to trust me." I was scared. I told him that. He held my face in his hands and said, "You don't have to be afraid of me." I thought for days, then finally said yes. I transferred $70,000 into a new joint account he helped set up. He said it would go toward suppliers and early marketing. He showed me mock-ups of the brand and packaging. It all looked real. I felt hopeful and afraid at the same time, but mostly I felt like something big was finally beginning. 3 days later, Damien stopped answering my calls. At first, I thought he was busy. Had mentioned flying to Miami for meetings, but soon the messages stopped. His social media disappeared. The email we used for our project bounced back. I went to his apartment, and the front desk told me had moved out 2 days earlier. My hands shook. My heart sank lower with every passing second. That night, I sat in my kitchen with the lights off, staring at the zero balance on the bank app. It wasn't just the money that it was the trust, the stories, the feeling that I'd shared something honest with someone who never intended to stay. The next morning, I called the bank. They said the funds had been transferred to another account, private and unreachable. I called the police. They asked if I had a contract. I said no. They asked if I had proof. He lied. I had text messages, but nothing that showed clear fraud. The officer said gently, "If you gave him the money by choice, it's not classified as a crime without more evidence." I said, "But he lied to me." He sighed. "It's not fair, but it happens more than you think." I walked home slowly, my legs weak. I passed by the shop but couldn't go in. My friends tried to comfort me, but their words felt hollow. Some asked why I had trusted him. Others told me to move on. No one understood what it felt like to have your faith stolen, not just your savings. I stopped answering calls. I stopped going out. But one morning I told myself he took what he could, but he didn't take you. I got out of bed, made coffee, and applied for a part-time job at a local bakery. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I swept floors, sliced bread, and smiled at customers, even when it hurt. Slowly, I began saving again. Cash in envelopes, hidden in a drawer. My dreams had shrunk, but my strength was returning. Weeks later, I searched Damien's name again. I told myself not to, but curiosity won. And then I found him. A different name, a different city, but the same face. He was smiling beside another woman. The caption read, "My whole world." My heart didn't stop, but it slowed. I stared at the photo. His arm around her shoulder, her wide smile, his calm confidence. The profile said Denver. Had listed himself as a wellness consultant. There were only a few photos, and the account was new. I couldn't prove it, but I knew it was him. The same jawline, the same calculated ease. I took a screenshot. Then I opened a notebook and began writing. Every message, every promise, every transfer, Every red flag ID ignored. I saved screenshots, receipts, mock-ups, everything. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I wasn't staying silent. When I went back to the police with the new evidence, a younger officer listened carefully. He didn't promise much, but he said we'll open a case. A few days later he called again. They'd found aliases linked to Damien in other states. Similar stories, different women. I was not alone. The officer gave me the phone number of one woman named Mayla. That night I called her. We cried together, strangers bound by the same wound. Over the next few weeks, we talked daily. First about him, then about ourselves, our hopes, our losses. Mayla said something that stayed with me. Maybe we can't get our money back, but maybe we can make sure he doesn't do it again. Together, we started a blog called Face Behind the Smile. We didn't post his name or photo, just stories. Ours, and eventually others. We wrote about manipulation, red flags, and emotional recovery. We didn't expect anyone to read it, but people did. Messages came from women across the country. Some had almost sent money. Others had lost everything. Your post saved me, one wrote. Another said, now I know I'm not alone. I cried reading those messages, not from sadness, but from healing. Months passed. The case moved slowly, but the blog grew. A journalist reached out and wrote an article about us titled The Man with Two Faces. How Romance Became Fraud. It wasn't dramatic, it was real. More women came forward. Silence turned into strength. I kept working at the bakery, saving again, not for a store this time but for peace. Mayla wrote recovery guides. I wrote checklists about online safety. We didn't get paid, but we didn't care. We were turning pain into purpose. Then came the call that changed everything. The officer told me they'd made an arrest. Damien caught in Dallas under another name, but digitally traced to the same fraud. When he asked if I'd testify, I said yes. Mayla cried when I told her. 2 broken hearts, she whispered, but we stopped him. The trial lasted 4 weeks. 7 women testified. The evidence was overwhelming. Damien, calm, silent, unrepentant, was sentenced to 12 years in prison. When the judge read the verdict, I didn't feel joy, but I did feel lighter, as if I could finally breathe. I hadn't just survived, I had spoken. Afterward, Mayla and I continued the blog. We spoke on podcasts, shared our story, and helped others spot the signs we once ignored. 1 year later, I visited my grandmother's grave. I brought yellow lilies and whispered, I didn't use your money the way I planned, but I used it to find my voice. I think she would have understood. Now I still live in the same small house. The kitchen walls are pale green, the herbs still grow in the window, and I work full-time at the bakery, even teaching baking classes twice a month. I'm writing a short book with Mayla about emotional recovery and online safety. Slow, honest work, the kind that heals. Sometimes I still think of Damien. Not with anger, but awareness. He wasn't a mistake. He was a lesson. He's part of my story, but he no longer defines it. A few nights ago, Mayla visited Savannah. We walked by the river at sunset, talking about everything and nothing. She turned to me and said he took a lot from us, but in the end, we got something he'll never have. I asked, "What's that?" She smiled. "Peace." And in that moment, I knew she was right. This was never a story about loss. It was a story about finding your way back, even when someone tries to erase you.